Doctors treating Russian opposition figure Alexei Navalny in Germany say tests indicate he was poisoned. Mr. Navalny remains in an induced coma at a Berlin hospital after being transferred from Siberia on the weekend. Doctors say he is being treated with an antidote and his life is not in immediate danger. He is a long-time critic of Russian President Vladimir Putin. He collapsed on a flight last weekend after drinking tea in what supporters say was a poisoning attempt, but Russian doctors who initially treated him say they found no trace of poisons. German doctors now say they found indications of chlorinestase inhibitors in his system, and these are found in several drugs, but also in pesticides and nerve agents. Let's get more with our Europe correspondent Samantha Hawley in London. So, Sam, the German Chancellor Angela Merkel has called for those behind any poisoning to be identified and held accountable. The question is, are Russian authorities likely to comply with that request?
Well, history would show you it's very unlikely that Russia will help in any independent investigation that's launched or comply with the request of the German government. We know that the Russian Health Ministry, for instance, has disputed the findings of the German doctors. The Russians have also said that it was Russian doctors that saved the life of that opposition figure in Russia. So I think very, very unlikely that Russia will play ball. But we have seen, of course, a pattern of behaviour from Russia. We saw in the UK, for instance, the Salisbury attack. It's very similar to that. The UK government has spoken out very strongly as well, demanding an independent investigation. So Russia will be under pressure, but very unlikely to comply.
Now, Sam, meanwhile, protests continue in the former Soviet state of Belarus, and opposition leader Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, who is in Lithuania, has just addressed an emergency summit of EU leaders. Let's first have a listen to what she had to say.
Belarus has woken up. We are not the opposition anymore. We are the majority now. The peaceful revolution is taking place. We demand to respect our basic rights. We demand all political prisoners freed. We demand to stop violence and intimidation by the authorities. Belarusian people deserve better. Europe deserves better. Thank you.
Svetlana Tikhanovskaya addressing EU leaders. Sam, how is the EU expected to respond to the crisis in Belarus?
Well, of course, the opposition leader there really wants the EU not to recognise the election result, and the EU has already taken some actions. Some sanctions have been imposed. Of course, 53 million euros, for instance, has been funnelled away from the Belarus government and to the civilians. They could take further steps, the EU, by putting in travel bans, for instance, freezing assets. So there is things that the EU can do, and so far I think the EU has largely supported the protesters on the streets. Now, just recently, the EU Council President said in a tweet, the people of Belarus deserve the democratic right to choose their leaders and shape their future. But of course the EU, Andrew, is 27 nations, and there are nations like Hungary, for instance, that do support the Belarus government. So it's not as simple as just imposing sanctions, that all nations would agree to that. But so far, the EU has had consensus on funneling that money away from the Belarus government and supporting the protesters. But I think the Belarus opposition leader there will be wanting some very strong action from the EU and strong statements from the EU against the Belarus government, and particularly against the treatment of those protesters on the streets.
Sam, good to talk to you. Thanks very much. Correspondent Samantha Hawley in London.